Okay, so thank you everybody for coming along tonight. We have Pat Collins, who many of you know, and obviously lots of people have turned up. You must know Pat, which is really exciting. She's a very long established and well-known herbalist in the Hunter region. And she's here tonight to share some of her wealth of knowledge about useful weeds. So thank you, Pat. And I just want to attach that to your collar.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Can people on the Zoom hear you, Pat?
Yep.
We've got a chair for Brian.
Okay.
We've got a chair for Brian. Oh, come on, Brian, come on. Come on. Come on.
Come on, sit in.
Part of the group, mate.
I'll get some more tea.
Okay, so I learned to be a herbalist back in the 80s. So it was a couple of years ago now. And I've been teaching TAFE, and with Stuart Carter, I was teaching outreach for a long, long time. And I also went and taught at WEA in Newcastle when that was working. But now, of course, it's much more difficult now if you want to become a herbalist and naturopath, you have to pay $40,000 or something, and it's very, very difficult compared to what it used to be. But I love teaching people about weeds. And the reason I love teaching about weeds is because they're all around us and people just want to poison them or dig them up or get rid of them. And what is a weed? It's a plant you don't know the use for, isn't it? So the plant out of place. So these are plants that are all useful. And so I brought them along to show you so that you have some good ideas of what you can use. And some of you probably already have a bit of an idea what you can use already. But anyway, it might give you a bit more insight in what you can do. I'm actually working now from the Total Health and Education Centre in Muswellbrook. And we've been there now for about 24, 25 years. And I run consultations, and we run a business, and we do a lot of very busy mail ordering system as well. I've written books, there's all sorts of things, and I'll show you about the books later. But I do want to start off with the weeds. And the reason I also love coming down to permaculture groups, because I believe in what permaculture does, and I've always followed biodynamic principles and permaculture and organic gardening and so forth. And this is just part of it. These are plants that are growing in that area for a certain reason. So for instance, one of the herbs in here that is growing, I'm calling them herbs, you call them weeds, whatever you like, is growing, it will grow where the iron is very high. Another plant will grow here because the soil is very hard and it's trying to make a hole through it. So it's trying to fix up what we have, often the damage that we've done. So let's start off with a very simple herb that you might all know, and who knows they're mallow. So this is mallow. Some people call it marshmallow. Can you see that okay? I'm trying to break it in half, pass it around. So mallow is a very common plant. I'll pass that one that way, and I'll pass this one this way. And mallow is a very easy to distinguish plant. It comes up this time of the year. Many of you got this growing in your garden or your lawns or wherever? Well, once I show you these plants, you'll be surprised where you start seeing them. It's often just showing you things, and then all of a sudden you think, oh God, that's that plant she was talking about. A very hard, difficult plant to pull up because it gets quite a heavy root system. I've seen, for instance, in the farms, cattle yards trampled down by cattle, and this plant trying to dig its way up and open up the soil again and recover the area again so that nature can fix itself. But then farmers might come along and poison it. So that's the way it goes sometimes, doesn't it? But this is a very high plant in mucilage. So if anyone wants to, if you get your thumbnail like that and you go up and down the stem, you'll feel it's all mucilagey. And you'll feel that content. That's one of the major things about mallows or the malva family, is that they've got a high mucilage content. Now, mucilage content is very important to protect our digestive system, to protect our sore throats. And also you can put in ointments and creams to put on our arms and our hands and so forth and the rest of our body, because it puts that nice protective layer on it. So a good way of doing it is just chopping this up, putting some water over it. You can leave it overnight, or you can just use a quicker one by doing hot water over it and putting lemon and honey with it. And that's a nice way of having mallow. Now, mallow is also very closely related to Paddy's lucerne. Now, I didn't bring Paddy's lucerne with me. It's only just looking like sticks at the moment. It's just going to leaf up. Do many of you know Paddy's lucerne? So I've got a picture of Paddy's lucerne in my weed book here, because Paddy's lucerne is very closely related to mallow. And Paddy's lucerne, where are we? Do you want to grab another book, Brian? We passed one way and we passed another. And if you want to look at the book, do you want to show them? we'll pass that around.
That mucilage, is that like what's in
Slippery elm.
aloe vera? That
Yeah.
sort of stuff? Is that
Yeah, that's in it. Yep, it definitely has mucilage. And also, if you know slippery elm, very high mucilage content in that one. Pass that one around that way. So Paddy's lucerne is a very common plant, grows tremendously around the area. See a tremendous lot of that. It's often called ironweed. It's very hard to pull out of the ground. It can grow quite tall. Horses don't tend to like eating it, but it is one I use a great deal of when I don't, especially when I don't have mallow. And I make Paddy's lucerne cough syrup, and it was very, very popular. You make lots of sugar, very sweet, gorgeous. But anyway, it really helps reflux, and it really helps coughs and protecting the lungs. So that's a beautiful herb that you can use. This plant here does grow around this area, but not so much. It's sometimes hard to find. I have seen it down at the University at Newcastle. It's called clivers. You've got it?
It goes all up the fence at this time of year.
There it does. Where are you?
Shortland.
Sure. Oh, there you go. Oh, that's where the university, yeah. So this one's always easy to recognise because, you know what I'm talking about now? Yeah. So this is growing really well this year because it's so all the moisture and everything else like that. It's got little tiny little hooks on it where they get the idea of Velcro from. And so that's why it sticks to you. Have a nice bouquet, you know. It's called clivers or cleavers. And this is a very valuable plant. And, you know, like all these plants, you know, you don't, if you're not using it, of course, pull it up. And it's quite easy to pull up. But basically, if you learn to use these things, such as I would dry that. Ryan's been juicing a whole pile today, and we preserve it as well. So, so this plant is grows so very well in this area up where we are. It just covers a whole lawn, like you say, it goes elsewhere. But it's good for kidneys. It's good for the lymphatic system. And there's not a lot of herbs that are good for the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is your immune system. So we put it in our teas, our tonic tea. For instance, I did bring an example of a tonic tea somewhere. I bought the example of a tonic tea. Here it is. So I'll just grab it. Tonic tea is made from a whole pile of weeds. And one of them is clivers. So this is the sort of thing that you can make. So this has got clivers and dandelion and nettles and all the ones that I'm going to show you today. So this is one of the ones because it's alterative, alters the system, makes it work better. So a very valuable one for that. But also you can easily, you know, you dry it, dries down to next to nothing. You can powder it down and then you can keep it that way. So pass around the tea and you can have a look at that tea. That's a pick-me-up tea. Okay, another very common plant that you see around here is plantain. So this is plantain. Ooh. So that's plantain. Lanceolate. There's different types of plantain. There's plantain major, and then there's more common plantain. And have a look at it, make sure they can recognise the flower.
Yeah, no, showing up.
All right. I'll pass it around. Sorry, I think so. Okay, so plantain. Did anyone ever use plantain before? What have you used it for?
I got my mother-in-law. She has a couple of recipes like every year, but she was really bad kidneys.
Yes, good for both those things. And who else used it?
Just use it in salads.
So you eat it. Yeah, that's quite true. It's quite edible. This is full of minerals. It's full of goodness. It's extremely good. The American Indians called it white man's foot because wherever white man came along, come his plantain behind him. So they're very smart. They watch what's going on, you know, so they can see better than we can. Here is a medicinal plant that follows us all over the world. I've been to Russia and seen it. I've been to Asia and seen it. And it's good because there's a plant, you get a bit of a cough or lots of other problems really. And then you can grab your plantain, make a cup of tea of it and drink it, and you've got something there. It's also often called a band-aid, the band-aid weed. So if you actually hurt yourself or something, just crush it up a little bit and roll it around your hand like that, and that's little nature's band-aid. I had one fella, I'll tell you how good it is though. I had one fella, he put a nail right through his finger. And this is one of Stuart's outreach courses I was teaching down at Wallenby or something. And she went, and the lady that actually knew this fellow, he went over and said, oh, look, I put this nail through my finger. She said, oh, we're going to do plantain on it, you know. And so she grabbed the plantain, wrapped it around his finger, and he was so impressed. He came to a muscle outreach course and did a whole, him and his father came and did the course because, you know, just that knowledge, he had no idea that weeds or anything could be useful like that. And when he found out it worked so well, he was so impressed. He was so happy about that. So it was really good to see. But I have seen wounds. I had one lady, she had a very bad, a sore on her leg and had been there for, she said about 4 or 5 years. And she tried steroid cream, she tried everything. I said, look, just poultice this. So she mushed it all up, put it on that area, and she said she couldn't believe it. They started clearing it up in no time at all, because sometimes you just need something natural on these things and something to break up, especially when it's green, chlorophyll. It's very important, but it's such a healing herb. So it's good for the lungs, good for the lymphatics, it's good for the eyes, it's good for everything. Really get it into you, but it is a very good way to asthmatic people to drink the tea of it too. And this is often what people get trouble with allergies, is the tops of it. Because plantain sometimes cause trouble with allergies. And you will see that's where we get our psyllium from. See the seeds there? That's the psyllium. But the psyllium actually comes from a bigger plant. Psyllium is good for your digestive system and good for your gut, you know, keeping your bowels working well. But the psyllium plants are actually got a bigger head on them. They're a different botanical one, but you can use that one, and you can see where the psyllium is. So it's many uses, very useful plant, and it will tend to grow on places that are hard packed, open up the soil. So it's nature's way of opening up the soil. Okay, now a big plant I've got in the middle here. This is dock, yellow dock, this one. So this is beautiful yellow dock. Do you want to show it? So, and this is a different type of dock. This is swamp dock. All docks are edible. You're not going to poison yourself. Do you want to break it in half so that what can get a bit? So I'm just showing you swamp dock here. Swamp dock is a native dock. This is an introduced dock. It has a yellow root, so you always can recognise it by its yellow root. And the tops of it, the seeds of it, are good for diarrhea, and the root of it is good for constipation. And then the leaves can be used for spinach, and the stems can be used for rhubarb. So you've got the great big leaf on that one. Can you see down the bottom of it? See that stem? Nice and thick. Makes beautiful rhubarb. So you can make beautiful dock and apple crumble. It's really nice. So there you are. You don't have to grow spinach anymore. You don't have to grow rhubarb anymore. But basically the yellow dock is the medicinal one. So when you dig it up and it's got a yellowy root, there's sort of a yellowy colouring to it. That's the medicinal one. So that's the one that's very good for skin problems.
What are the brown dots on the leaves?
It's very common that they get, especially with all this moisture. Yeah, it's nothing wrong with it, but it's just what they tend to do. There's just been so much moisture around. So this little swamp dock here, which we don't have many plants to go, that we send back to England, and we sent this one back to England on sheep's wool. So the burrs on it got into sheep's wool and went back to England, and now they've got this wonderful dock growing around their place. So isn't that nice to give them one of our weeds back, eh? So another little plant that's really easy to recognise. If you want to hold that close. We just pulled this out of the yard up and just on the way down. It's called shepherd's purse. And you can recognise shepherd's purse by the little tiny purses, like little hearts, and then the little white flower. Now, if you look very carefully, you will see it is a typical brassica plant where it has 4 separate, like a cross, 4 flowers, like a little cross on it, which is all the brassicas are, because this is a brassica. And overseas, over in China and that, they grow a great big variety of this, and they use it as a vegetable. So it's a very edible plant. But also, medicinally wise, the hearts tell you, and plants will often tell you, they've got what they call a doctrine of signatures, and they will tell you what they're useful for. And the doctrine of signatures of this one tells it's good for the heart, very good for blood pressure. So it keeps blood pressure down, like balanced. So if you've got high blood pressure, it'll balance it down. But if you've got low blood pressure, it's not going to give you a lot of trouble. So it'll just balance it. The other thing it's very good for is bleeding. And I use it a lot for people with heavy periods and all those sort of things as well. And it's extremely good for that. I had one fellow had warfarin, was taking warfarin, and it was a bit on a high dose, and he was bleeding on the pillow all the time. I said, well, just drink this. So it's just a very mild dose. And he was drinking this in a mild dose, and it just stopped that extra bleeding. Didn't interfere with the rest of his medication, which was good. If you can do things mildly, that's really good. But shepherd's purse, very easy one for you to all recognise. And it comes up only this time of year, in winter. In fact, it's dying off a bit now. And you won't see it usually through summer. Now, another plant that's around a lot at the moment is chickweed. You must all know chickweed. Yeah. Ah, yeah. This is a very healthy chickweed. In fact, I thought I didn't have chickweed here. Chickweed doesn't always grow this gorgeous. But basically, chickweed, very easy plant to distinguish. It's got little tiny hairs going down one side, then it stops and swaps over, and the hairs going down the other side of the stem. So make sure I'm giving you chickweed. Yeah, this is good chickweed. Just see, have a look at the different stems if you can. Just hold up against the light and you can see the hairs going down one stem, swap over, going down the other stem. You pull it open, it's got like an inner membrane in it, and it's got a little tiny white starlight flower. Now, the reason I'm telling you to be very precise about chickweed is because there's so many other plants like it. There's a lot of plants that look like chickweed. Chickweed is a very edible plant. It's very good for you. I sell some medicine, and in that medicine, they have for iron, people with iron deficiencies, they put chickweed in it. Chickweed has also been proved to actually help people lose weight. I don't know how much juice you'd have to drink, but certainly there's some evidence of that. The other thing you can use it for is eczema, and it's good for itchy skin. I make a lot of chickweed creams, chickweed ointments, very good to rub on to stop that itchiness. I had one fellow, a young little boy, he was coming down to Newcastle. Actually, he was going down Nelson's Bay from where we were. And mother was really worried because he was allergic to mosquitoes. So every time he got bitten by a mosquito, he'd come up in this lump and he'd itch it, of course. And so she found chickweed was brilliant. She had this chickweed ointment. As soon as he got bitten, put it on there, didn't itch at all, so he didn't scratch it, and so he didn't have an allergy. So just shows you how good this one can be. But I've used it a lot with all sorts of eczemas and anything that's itchy and irritable. But on top of that, it's good in soups. It's a good, wonderful alternative to lettuce. In the cooler months, you get a lot of this chickweed growing, and then you can put it in your soups and in your salads and all those sort of things. And it's extremely good for you. It's got a lot of amino acids and things in it. More cells, probably more salts, I suppose. Okay, now this one here is fennel. I love fennel. Fennel comes up everywhere in our place. You want to show fennel? No, take that bit. Yep. You take that bit. If you want to have a chew, have a chew. Because fennel's really, I knew I'm going to chew this, but I won't while I'm talking. So fennel, when it's all nice and young, it's really nice and it's tasty, very licoricey flavour. You wouldn't like this if you don't like licorice, but it's a really tasty little plant. It's just coming back up again. We got wild fennel all over our place. Some of you probably grow Florence fennel, and that's the enlarged stalks. But you can use this just the same. This is the wild fennel. I keep the seeds of it. We use it for colic and all sorts of digestive trouble. So it's so good for digestion. And just chopping this up and putting it in salads all the time. Such a beautiful digestive herb. So don't ever forget fennel. Some of you have been to India and that, where they have little fennel seeds and little bits of sugar and hundreds and thousands. That you always have that after your meal, because fennel settles the tummy. I'm sure it was only fennel once, not with all the hundreds and thousands stuff in it, but that's what's become popular. Now, another plant that often gets confused, at the moment you wouldn't think, I wouldn't get that confused with chickweed, but when it's small, they do look very alike. And but it's got a white sap in it. So if I can break it in, do you want to show it first and then I'll break it? Just break it in half and pass it around. Basically, it's petty spurge. Petty spurge or radium weed. And okay, don't know if you can see the white sap in there. You must have a sample, did you? So the petty spurge is a very common plant to find around. It tends to like growing more in the acid sort of soils, and it often grows in pots and things like that, and barky gardens and things. But petty spurge is a really good one for skin cancers, suspects and sunspots. So works very well and been proven to work very well on basal cell carcinomas. That's those rough ones. Not melanomas. It doesn't do anything for melanomas. It's the flat ones. It does a lot though for BCCs. And literally you can just break it off, put the sap on you, and just make sure it doesn't roll off or anything. You put a little bit of Vaseline around it, or Vaseline, whatever you got, ointment, around there, and put it in the middle, or you can put a little Band-Aid over the top. We make a cream because a lot of people don't like to bother with that sort of thing. So, and they don't have it, so they use the cream. Basically, I just juice the plant and preserve it. But but it's a really useful little plant and has been proven. And they've actually used, now they get an active substance out of it. And what they have done is made it into a product that they sell through the pharmacies. And they use it for first stage, trouble with cancers. So you can actually buy it now, $100 or something, but you can buy it like that. So this way you get the whole plant and use the whole plant. I believe in using the whole plant, not part of it. So when it's young, like I say, it can get confused with chickweed, but when you break it open, white sap. When you see white sap, always beware. That's always a rule of thumb, but there are some exceptions. But in general, white sap, beware. I mean, white sap comes in figs, doesn't it? So you know figs are edible. Okay, another plant that's useful around here that you see, grows in the chookyard or whatever, it's called horehound. It's got a bit of white, it's growing quite green and lush at the moment. It gets these white hairs and it often goes whitish underneath. And horehound is extremely good for trouble with trees that you have with trees. What's it called? It's that trouble you get with fruit trees. Wilt, not wilt. But they will the leaves drop off. You know, they go all curled up. No. Leaf curl. Yeah, it's got another name. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, when you buy a fruit tree, sometimes it gets this sickness in it, and what you can do is you can just put horehound, hang it up in the trees, and all those leaves will fall off. It's quite amazing, and then you can grow it underneath, and it will keep the tree healthy. So it's an amazing little plant. But also you can have when the first sign of sickness, you can have 5 leaves. They are very bitter. If anyone wants to taste it, you won't forget it. There you are. You have a taste. It's got a nice bitter flavour. You can make that's why they make horehound beer out of it, because horehound beer is a nice bitter flavour for the horehound's a nice bitter for the beer, because you're going to need a bitter flavour for your beers. But if your first sign of sickness, 5 leaves chopped up on some honey, swallow it down, and it can do you amazing. I'm trying to think of that thing for the trees. It'll come to me.
That can replace Foxing beer or just
yeah. You can. There's horehound. You can get horehound beer, and you can look it up. And it's a very popular one in England. And they used to say it was a very good medicinal beer. It was good for people with gout and things like that. So it's nice to make a beer that's medicinal, isn't it? You know, good. I've actually, me and Brian did make beer one time, but we don't like beer at all, and it tasted just like beer. We had these adventurous scouts came out, and we told them to have a bit. I don't think that was a very good idea, but anyway. But horehound was brought to Australia. It's one of our plants that was brought to Australia for its medicinal uses. So it came from us from Europe. A lot of these plants come from Europe, and this plant came to us from Europe, and they brought it because it's very specific for a cough, a dry cough. Not a wet cough, a dry cough. So it will help bring up the sputum, because dry coughs are damaging. You know how sometimes people cough and they make a heck of a noise and they bring up all the sputum? That's good. That's all out. But when they get this dry sort of cough and it really starts to hurt them in there, this is specific. You can make horehound lozenges, very tasty way of doing it. Or you can make horehound syrup and things, or you can just, we just make a tincture out of it and we give it to people that way. So it's another way of doing it. But a very, very useful little plant. Okay, what else have we got here? Oh, here's a great favourite. I won't pass this one around. If you want to hold up in front of the camera, this is nettles. There's the other plant, huh? So you all know your nettles. Curly leaf. So this is the English nettle. And then there's the any nettle, as long as it stings you, you're fine. Okay, so All you need to know is a nettle that can be used. You right with that? And then there's this is more the common nettle. Got to watch, they're nasty, these ones. If you grasp a nettle, it doesn't get you, but don't trust them. So that's an example of the native nettle. Urtica incisa. This is Urtica urens. Now, Urtica urens comes up around this time and it's much easier to handle, much nicer. It's got some seeds at the moment going to seed, always less stingy when it's going to seed. You can keep the seeds of that and plant them in your garden. Everyone will love you, all the nettles everywhere. But nettles is a really good, if you look up in biodynamic books, I think there's one called Grasp the Nettle. Has anyone read that book called Grasp the Nettle? It's a biodynamic book. And basically it's saying how good this is because it's so good in your compost and it's so good for the other plants. It will make your peppermint grow better, peppermint essential oil. It will make your tomatoes keep longer if you can get anywhere near them. But the that's why I keep nice and keep, yeah, sneaky, eh? But it's loaded with nutrients and loaded with minerals. In fact, this has got all these minerals that we're missing so much now. It's got the magnesium, it's got the zinc, it's got the selenium, it's got all those beautiful minerals that we need so much. So just getting yourself onto nettles rather than pop a tablet all the time is a way to do it. So a very, very useful plant. I make nettle hair conditioner. I even brought you a bit to show you. This is grabs a couple off the shelf before I come. So that's our nettle hair conditioner. And it's an actual nettle treatment. So what we do is we juice the nettles and then we preserve the nettles with, preserve them with glycerine, a little bit of acetic acid, which is like vinegar. And then I put it into a cream base, and that's what we use. You can get a bit out of that if you want to rub a bit on your hand so you can see. You can use it for a lot of things. But basically, you can use it as a hair treatment and it will keep the hair in your head because it actually strengthens your hair follicle. Very, very high in silica. Extremely high silica plant. And if you don't do that, you can get your nettles, chop them up, cover them up in apple cider vinegar, leave them in a nice warm spot, 10% in that in your final wash of your hair. Wash your hair, rinse your hair. Probably smell like fish and chips for a little while, but it doesn't matter. And we'll keep the nicks out of your hair of your kids and things like that too. So because it will keep the acid balance of your hair. Do you understand when you put a soap or a shampoo on your hair, you've got a lovely acid mantle that's protecting you all over. Then we go into a shower, we put soap all over ourselves. So we wash off all that lovely protection. And then they say you've got more bugs on you when you get out of a shower than any other time. And then, no, well, there are bugs everywhere, aren't they? And we do the same for our scalp, don't we? We wash it with soap and shampoo. But by putting back on an acid like that, you actually put the balance back into the skin. So, and giving yourself a final rinse with any apple cider vinegar gives you that nice balance and protects your skin. So all those little dirty kids you see around, they're probably very healthy. So that we often see running around. Okay, now, but nettles loaded with minerals. Make nettle quiche, make nettle pie, make nettle tea. There's so much you can do with nettles. Can never have enough of it. Okay, now another plant that I've let grow rampant, and it's a bit of a warning, don't let it grow rampant, is wandering dew. You want to know wandering dew? This is the white flowering variety. It did have a white flower on it, but it's fallen off. The one you want to grow is the blue flowering variety. I think they tell you can't say wandering dew anymore, by the way. You're supposed to say wandering tramp or something. Is that what they say? Yeah, I know, but trad, yeah. Yeah, because it was supposed to be like wandering dew. Wandering dews wander all over the world. And so there's this plant, but then people think, oh, it's yucky plants. That's not a very nice thing to say about people, is it? So, but the one that you want is a scurvy weed. And the scurvy weed is the one with the blue flower. That's Australian native. So always encourage your lovely blue. You probably know the botanical name of it. Commelina, yeah. That's the one you keep. That's the Australian native. Whereas the white flowering is the introduced one, but it's very tough, the white flowering one. So it will come into your garden and take over. I don't know if many of you ever knew the fellow down at Patterson, John Priestley. Anyone heard of John Priestley? Had an orange orchard down there. He grew this everywhere, all over his orange orchard. He didn't care if it was white or blue, whatever. And it actually cut his water down by a third. And what I did into the drought is I let this plant grow all over the place, because this plant will hold the moisture in around your trees. So it holds onto any moisture, any little tiny bit in the atmosphere, and then the roots of the tree will take up the moisture from the plant. It's quite amazing. I think for a dry country, it's just wonderful. But then what happens? It rained. So now I have wandering you this high everywhere. So it took quite well. Some people don't like it because they say the dogs get upset with it.
Yeah, I was going to ask her, which is the one that dogs can get upset by?
Either one.
Either one.
I know it does with that one. I presume it's with the blue one. It's funny, you know, though, because my dogs, I've had a lot of dogs over my life, they've always loved it, lying it all the time. I don't understand why some dogs are very touchy with it and some aren't. There's no essential oil in it. There's no hairs on it, but there must be something in it that just irritates some dogs. But chooks love it, and they'll dig it all up. So you always get rid of one with chooks. So that's always a good way of getting rid of it, because otherwise one little bit of root keeps going, your whole garden's covered in it. So yes, I've learned well. Okay, now another one that's very good, and you must all know this one, is sow thistle, milk thistle. No, sow thistle, milk thistle, you break it up. It's the one that does have white sap, but it's one that you know is very edible. Now, this is the most commonest plant that grows all over the world. It's done the best of all plants. And there is a very, there's another variety that's really got nasty little spikes on it. It's a spiky variety. Well, I try and pull out the spiky variety. Oh, this one. And you can eat these little ones like little lettuces when they're young. You can also make ointments and things out of it. It's a very useful plant. But basically, it's got a lot of minerals and things like that in it. And it's good to put it back in your compost. It's good for your chooks, good for your birds. You can use this plant for lots of things. So milk thistle is a common name, sow thistle, Sanchez, you know, you can get the botanical names. I've written books, so I remember all the botanical names, by the way. But it is a very common little plant. Another very common little plant is our wonderful dandelions. So this is our dandelion. Have two leaves. Now, dandelion, everyone needs to grow dandelion in their garden. You always know dandelion grows one single stem, break it open, and it's always hollow. Whereas the common dandelion, flatweed, another one they call it, or false dandelion, it doesn't have the medicinal uses this one does. It's still edible and you can still use it, but you know, it can be a problem. I know people with horses, they go crazy on it, eat it and makes them really crazy. So that's false dandelion, not dandelion. Dandelion is loaded with nutrients, full of vitamin A, full of potassium. It's a really, really good. Anyone heard of it called pissenlit, which means wet the beds? That's this plant. Some people have it for other names, but this is a proper one that should be called pissenlit, because it's the dandelion specific for the kidneys. The dandelion root specific for liver, and the leaf is specific for the kidneys. So it gets everything working. You can make cups of tea out of it. You can get the roots and you can make dandelion coffee. You all drunk dandelion coffee, haven't you? It's just, they roast it. I had a lady come to me one time and bought all this root off me, and she said, oh, that doesn't taste the same as my dandelion coffee. I said, no, you got to roast it. It doesn't taste like anything unless you roast it. But dandelions are loaded with nutrients, and overseas they would tend, often places like Europe and that, where they have more knowledge about some of this. We've lost a lot of our knowledge, which is really sad with these things, because this is a very much medicinal plant, brought to Australia for its medicinal uses. And this one can be used, they use it in Vichy and places like that, health resorts, and they put it in their salads. You should always cut up your dandelion and put it in salads. It's a little bit of a bitter, a bit like rocket in that, very good for you. And chop it up, full of vitamins and minerals, and really you'll get a lot of benefits from putting this into your diet. So get this one growing. It didn't grow at my place. I only grew false dandelion. So I just got some seeds and we scattered it around. Now it's going all over the garden. Brian's going around like this orange lawnmower. So because we're trying to look after our little dandelions, you can pick the dandelion flowers. You can make beautiful dandelion honey. There's all sorts of things you can do with dandelions. Sorry? One of the things, I don't know, has anyone heard of Maria Traben? She's wrote books called From Health from God's Pharmacy. She was an Austrian lady, and she looked after a lot of people in her own country and kept them out of hospitals and things. She used to say you could fix people with MS and everything, and the courts tried to have her up, but she only even put it in a book. It's up to people what they did. So she died a little while ago now. She would have been well in her 80s. Don't worry, herbs didn't kill her. But anyway, she loved dandelions. She was big on dandelions, and really, really encouraged people. She used to say, in summer, in spring, eat stalks of dandelions. Eat 10 stalks every day. It'll give you a spring clean. So that was her way of cleaning up the body. So beautiful little plant. Don't ever forget dandelions. Try to keep it in your garden. It delves down deep so that the worms can go down deep and really open up the garden as well. So it's really nice. Another plant that grows a little bit like chickweed is this one called Scarlet Pimpernel. And this one here is a blue variety. So there's the blue flower on that one. You can see the blue flower on that one. So there's the scarlet colour, and there's the one with the blue. Then the blue one, and can you see it's got a square stem? See how it's got a square stem? So you always recognise it, not mixed up with chickweed, because it looks a bit chickweedy like. It's not a very edible one. It's more medicinal. We use it also in our ladies' vegetable cream for whitening the skin, to help people with blemishes. It's supposed to be, it's good for epilepsy, and it's not, something you give everybody every day. It's something for epilepsy, is it? I have done an epileptic dog before, and it has helped. So, but other than that, we don't tend to. But again, another common plant that looks a bit like chickweed, growing everywhere. If you've got the blue flower, that means you mainly got alkaline soil. If you've got the red flower, it means you've got mainly acid soil. Sometimes you see the two together is what predominates. It's a type of soil that you have. That's like those. What are those plants called that get the blue flowers and you get the blue and the red for acid. Then there's other little plants popping up everywhere, and this can be a real pain. This one grows everywhere. Fleabane. And fleabane at the moment doesn't look anything like it looks when it's older. Is there a book? Is that books? Where are those books gone? Can you look up fleabane and pass it around? F-L-E-A, bane. Is there another book somewhere? Oh, if you could, because you'll see what it looks like when it's older. It's completely different to when it's younger. So this is its younger age, because it's only just popping up. It'll be all over the paddocks, this high, with those little white fur balls that get people with allergies. Fly everywhere. But this is what it looks like when it's young. It really covered the area last year. Tremendous lot. What you will find with a lot of these weeds, they'll grow crazy lot of fleabane. Another year you'll get crazy lot of cranesbill, and then completely disappears. So you don't have to worry about it. The weeds tend to balance themselves. And then the year after you might get a pile of caddis or something. But anyway, I don't encourage caddis. Okay, another plant you've got here. Oh, there's two here. Okay. This is fumitory smokeweed. It's a prettiest little thing. Is anyone growing this around the place? It grows a pink flower or a white flower. There's two varieties. So that's the white variety, and there's a pink variety. Okay, can you see they're different? Yeah, one's much more delicate than the other. So this is the white variety. And this is the pink variety. Whoa, where'd the pink variety go? There's pink variety. Now, pink variety has a much more delicate leaf. So that's the pink and that's the white. Now, they can be used for skin problems. They got a thing in it called fumarium, which is really good for skin problems. So you can use it for dermatitis, make ointments and creams. They grow in great clumps and grow over everything. Like, they call it smokeweed. Smoke over everything. It's a prettiest little thing. The weeds are very pretty, but the pink one is more medicinal than the white one. The white one tends to be tougher, but the pink one can take over pretty nicely too. Grows all right. Now, I'm not sitting here encouraging you to grow any of these, but if you've got them, use them. So another one that we've got here, it's a great favourite, is blackberry nightshade. Not deadly. We do not grow deadly nightshade around this area, only blackberry nightshade. Belladonna doesn't grow around here. Belladonna's got a different flower. Blackberry nightshade has a little white flower with a little yellow center. So it's one, you know, in the tomato family. It's a Solanium family. So a lot of the Solanium families can be, some of them can be poisonous, and come in one of our best medicines. Now, blackberry nightshade has got a tremendous lot of medicinal uses. So we make ointments out of it, blackberry nightshade ointment. It's really good for any sort of herpes virus. So very good for the cold sores. I had one lady who had cold sores right up the back. And she said that blackberry nightshade worked as good as anything she ever got from the chemist. And the thing is, you can cover your lips with it. You know, it can be a protection of the lips. The thing is, though, it's got a lot more uses than just cold sores. It can be used. I had a lady that had big lumps in her breast. You know, she had breast cancer, and she couldn't stop the pain. She was used doing all the, you know, chemotherapy and everything, and that was the only ointment that would give her any relief. You can really use it for a great variety of things. So yes, very good for shingles. Yes, because it's a herpes virus. The leaf or the berry part of it? The whole tops. The best, when I make it when the berries and the flowers are just coming out. That's the best time to use it, when it's got its best. And then everyone gets worried because the green berries are poisonous. Okay, they've got selenium in them, so don't eat the green berries. Watch the birds. They don't eat green berries. They wait for the blackberries. I got people now that cover their little blackberry nightshades over so they can make their own jam, because it makes the best jam, those blackberries. They're really nice. But when you cook up the tops and they've got green berries on it, that's okay as long as you boil it up in oil. That destroys the selenium. I've looked at all that up and checked it out. So that's why, and I have found the blackberry nightshade, if it's used in its dry form, doesn't work. No, it doesn't work at all, hardly at all. It's got to be made up in its fresh form. Okay. Anyone can take any samples home today, you're more than welcome. So this one here, I think, is this the last one I have here on here? Then we'll be open to questions. I mean, there's lots of others, but there's the ones I grabbed this morning. Now, there's a brassica. This one's just coming out. This one hasn't quite got out. You all know your brassicas. There's brassicas growing everywhere. Mustard weeds. There's lots of mustard weeds. You always recognise it by their very telltale. Did anyone watch Gardening Australia the other day? I said they were talking about brassicas, and they were saying, look for that little, those 4 little petals in a cross. Sorry, this one doesn't have a flower on it. And someone was saying about bees and things. I mean, bees love, you're in the hive here, bees love the flowers on these plants. So they are, you know, you can see a whole paddock covered in yellow. That's what it is, it's mustard weed. There's different types, there's a few different ones. There's a bit to them, but anyway, I think that covers all the plants I've got here. So is there any questions? See? Killed you all with information here. You can use the fresh leaf always of any plant. You can use fresh. I always think fresh is nicest, but really for people that want to keep things, and you know, it's easier if it's dried, and you can just keep it in its dried form. So it's and you can make your tea, it keeps a long time. But it's 1 teaspoon for every cup of boiling water. For dried, for fresh, 2 teaspoons. Always double, okay? And then you can just let it steep for 5 to 10 minutes and then drink it down. You can have teas hot or cold, put lemon and honey with them. Learn to be versatile with these things. If you can't get someone to do it, stick it in his Coke drink or something, you know. There's always ways of getting things down, people.
Do you dry in a dehydrator or just hang dry?
We do some, especially now, we do some hang dry at the moment with this moisture content, things go mouldy. We've got a slow combustion fire that we actually dry. We've got racks on top of it and we dry on top of that. But we also have our dehydrator in town, which we use a little bit, like we're drying apples in there for a moment. So that sort of thing. But I dry a lot of stuff, so we have to have a lot of room. So we try and dry some bigger amounts of things. I also buy a lot of our herbs to make our teas and things like that too, from places like Southern Light Herbs in Victoria. That's a very good place to get them from. Southern Light Herbs. I shouldn't tell everyone that, they'll have no market. I'll just tell everyone that one. But they are good. They're very genuine people and they have very nice herbs. So, and I like those ones. And they're good price. I have written a few books just to show you. If I can find the first book. Brian hasn't got the first book. It's in here somewhere. So when I first started teaching TAFE, you're right. I did bring a couple of books if anyone wants to get a book. When I first started teaching TAFE, they said to me, stop giving the students notes, please, put it in a book form. So I thought, okay, I can write a book. And I started off with, I called all my series In Touch with the Earth, because I feel people are getting away from the earth and they need to get back to it. And the first one was called A to Z of Almonds. And the second one that I wrote was, oh no, not the onion poultice again. My poor kids were very embarrassed me writing this one. It was all about poultices on them and onions and onions for earaches and all sorts of things. So I've actually stuck the two together to create one book now. So that's the first one I wrote. And then the next one I wrote was the yellow book. This is where I get most of my recipes from. Pat's Herbal Recipes. And that's where I get a lot of my recipes and ointments and creams and looking after pets and all sorts of things in there. So you're more than welcome to have a look. And then I wrote that one next. Medicinal herbs for home use, because I taught people all about chilies and calendulas and all the things that you can do with them, what to do with an onion and a carrot and things like that. That's medicinal. Now, a lot of people say to me, oh, isn't everything in one book? Sorry, no, it's not. They're all separate books. I did have a fellow come around and from ABC, and we did a disc, because a lot of people like practical, they like to see things. So we did a disc called Practical Home Healing. So that's about an hour and 47 minutes, I think it is. And it's all about how to make an ointment and how to put poultices on and compresses and things like that. So that worked out quite nicely. Then I was teaching bush camps and things like that. So I wrote one called Bushwise book. And see, I've got to put Brian on. He looks better than I do. Looks more bushy. So you got that fire going, didn't you, Brian, with 2 sticks? Of course you did. Yes. And it's got a CD with it. So if you do get it, it's got a CD. But this is, I felt people didn't know what was around our area, so I wrote that one. And that also has a lot of self-sufficiency in it as well. And then I wrote, oh, I've lost one. Where's the other one? There's another one. There it is. Sorry, this is my second book, right? Third book. Useful Weeds at My Doorstep. I sell thousands of these. And I got a lady, she did all these beautiful drawings. I mean, she took ages to do these drawings, and they're really good. But everyone said, no, we can't recognise it. So I had to stick some colour photos in the front. This is 40 weeds that are around the area and just how you use them. But that was before I put the other book together. But then people said to me, no, Pat, you've got too many recipes, you need another book. So I had to buy another book, more recipes in that book. So that was more of my recipes. And this is vegetarian and all that sort of thing, and permaculture and all sorts of things in there, biodynamics. And the last book that I wrote was the one that's been passed around. And that's the first book that we've not published ourselves. So that's New Holland Press. And when I did it for New Holland Press, I wanted something that you could recognise. Do you see how easy the pictures are to recognise? My son enhanced them with a computer to make them really easy to see. And there's over 300 pictures in there, because it's most important that you recognise these plants. And there's over 100 plants in there. That's not so much how to use them, it's all the research about them, it's how to identify them, it's generally how to use them. And I was really pleased they could do it for a good price. I actually asked if they do the book for under $30, and they did it for $29.99, which is very, very good for that book. And then they put it up since then, mind you. We only sold for 35 now. I think they sold for 40. But basically, I could never have printed that with all those photos for that sort of thing. But I have brought a few of those down if anybody wants a book, and you can get one. But is there any other questions?
I was just going to say, for the people online, if they want to buy books online, what's your website?
Oh, yes, www.patcollins.com.au, very easy. And we sell online all the time. We also sell at Organic Feast, which is in East Maitland, some of you know. And Organic Feast can always get stuff down to them if they, say for instance, you go in there and there's no books, say, excuse me, go and get some more books off Pat, because they go up there every Wednesday and we do deliveries on Wednesday. Okay. All right, is there any other questions or any other thing I can? Yes? How do you get a weed? You know, I travel way out west when I need St. John's wort. You know, I make St. John's, beautiful St. John's wort oil. I pass it around since I've got it here. And I have to go and find it. That's St. John's, what we put essential oils in. That's very good for pain. We use the flowers and we put it into oil. That is a weed, a bad weed. And we go into the places where it grows, and that's where I pick it up. So, for instance, I remember I went to Bunnan, which is the other side of Scone, and they've got sheep farm out there. The whole place is covered in horehounds everywhere. So you often go to places where it's prevalent, and you know then it's growing really well and it's very healthy. Sometimes if you pick up a herd and try and grow at your place, it doesn't like it. It doesn't like a lot of wet feet. It likes it to be dry. It likes to be tough. Stick it in a dry old pot plant, it grows well. So I have it up my way, but I don't know. You'd have to look around because I don't know how easy it is. I don't know. Can you get seeds for these sort of things? Sometimes you can. What's that? Mullaney seeds or something, is it? There's one near Port Eden. Yeah, Green Patch, I'm thinking of. I think they have a lot of weeds in theirs. So they might have Green Harvest.
Yeah.
Green Harvest might be the one near Atari, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think she's more likely to get the weeds for you. Anyway, but you know, I would have some if you just contact me and tell me, and I'll try and get some seeds for you or something. It's not more the middle of summer. It's only looking like that at the moment.
I think a lot of them grow in wild around the place, but I'm always reticent to pick them because of the lead content in the soil.
You've got to know where they're growing. And sometimes what I've done myself is I've dug them up, planted at my place, and waited till they reproduce, make new babies. Because plants, weeds particularly, will grow where they're needed to be. So if you plant them here and they don't like it, they'll pop over there somewhere. That's where they're best, because that's where all the minerals and things are going to be. And if it's in your garden's nice and clean, then that's good to use. I live up the country. I'm surrounded by Wallamai National Park. And so we're really lovely where we are. So we're quite safe where our plants are. But if you look around, have a knowledge about these sort of things, and yes, don't go and pick them on the side of the road. Not around here, but certainly you could dig them up and you could put them, grow them in your own place.
I've got a question. I bought some wood chips, and this has come up in it, and I've got no idea what it is, and I don't use one of those weed identifier apps. So, got any idea, or may anybody have any idea?
Does anyone know? I don't know this sort of thing.
It's got a little tiny white flower.
Oh, I think I do know it.
I think
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, I've seen it. So what's it called?
I don't know, but I have the feeling it's a native. It's like a little white flower.
Yeah, it's purple on the back.
But if
Grows everywhere, doesn't it? I don't know what it's called though. I've never found a medicinal. I look up a lot of these plants, and if I can't find medicinal use for them, I sort of forget their names. But it is quite a common little thing. I think it is a native.
it's a native, I'm okay with it. We live right near the bush, and I think it travels.
Oh yeah, pops up everywhere, doesn't it? You get a lot of it.
Very, I won't say fibrous roots, but lots of roots, and they're all white.
Yeah, it always gets that back purple on the back of it, a little tiny white flower. Yeah, no. There's lots of plants out there. I'm sure there's lots of plants, you know, there's so many more that we could learn about and understand. And natives, we need to learn more about natives. I'm in a group called Indigenous Plants for Health Association because I want to encourage understanding about our natives and how we can use them. And, you know, we just don't know enough information of these sort of things. But it's better go and use your weeds because nobody wants them. So use them and make use of them, and that's why we can make them into what we want to do with them. Okay, so is there any other questions or?
Did anybody online have a question, or unmute yourself? But you do the question in here in the meantime.
My flower block is chocolate block full of wandering dew with the white flowers.
Where's your chooks?
Yeah, we've got a dog and he is itchy, but I can't keep on top of it. But is there a use for it that I can?
Well, wandering dew to me is very good because it holds the moisture in the soil.
Yes,
There is no other. The blue flowered one is more medicinal than the white flowered one. It is edible. It is edible. You can eat it. Yeah, it's quite succulent. You can just chomp it up. Yeah, it looks like good like carpet all over your garden, eh? So it's a trick because a little bit grows, but look, I pull it up and I can clean up a good little area. And as long as you grow something else, you're going to need to grow something else competing it. So you need to clean it up because it's quite easy to pull out, though you can't get all the little roots. And you need to get something that competes. It's really important to do.
So when you were talking about how it aggravates or irritates dogs, what type of irritation are we talking about?
Oh, they get itchy skin.
Hot spots. Henry's always in the one spot all the time. Oh, okay.
Don't exactly know why.
I've got a pup who's just always biting on one side. It's a hot spot.
Is there wandering dew?
I've got the scurvy weed, but I've got a heap of clover that sort of is keeping it relatively suppressed.
Yes, clover's a good one to keep it suppressed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, so the thing is those little hot spots and that, you actually can calm it down with chickweed. Chickweed's really good. Make yourself a chickweed ointment, boil up some chickweed in some olive oil, and then use that on them. That can really settle it down very quickly. One of the best things for what they call summer itch. A lot of animals get it. All right.
I just see the message from you, Lisa, about the recording. I do have to create a new YouTube channel and put up all the recordings we've done this year. But did anybody else online have a question for Pat?
Yeah, we're dumbfounded them.
No, you're done. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much, Pat. It's just been absolutely wonderful. Really appreciate it.
And I did bring my newsletter. Do you want to pass that around? If you haven't got one, we do it every 2 months, so you might find some good little bits of information there for you.
Yeah. So what we might do now is this is kind of the official end, but maybe Pat can lay her books out. So
yeah, you're welcome to have a look. I'll
basically,
clean them up.
she has you can pay Pat online if you like to buy any books.
Yeah, I've got Square if anyone needs Square.
Or people online can order them through their website. And the other thing I just want to say is, can I just borrow the?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I just want to say the Narara Eco Village tour, which is coming up at the end of October. So I've advertised it in the newsletter and I've advertised it on Facebook. If people would like to come to that, I think it's going to be a great day. So it's going to be a full-on day. It's been kind of organised, a bit of a special event for us through John Shield, who used to be part of this group. He lives down there now. So the plan is that we'll actually kind of go down there. They have a standard tour that they do once a month. So we'll start off with a standard tour of the property. We get a bit of a talk about the property, wander around for about an hour and a half. There's lunch. So basically it's $10 for lunch and they'll kind of feed us, or you can bring your own if you don't want to do that. Then we're going to have a bit of a talk about the history of the site. It used to be owned by the Department of Primary Industries, and there was like growing special kind of range of plants. So I think that'll be quite interesting. Then there's going to be a little bit of a working bee. So we're going to kind of help them out. They have a kind of a community garden in the village. So I think it's about an hour and a half little working bee helping out with that. So they'll provide all the tools. But if you're coming along, basically bring some suitable shoes and some hand gloves. And we're going to do a tour of maybe one or two of the houses in the property. I think maybe, I'm not quite sure which ones yet, but yeah, I think one or two of the houses. They've got some interesting ones there. They've got mud brick ones and straw bale ones and earth ships and yeah, interesting stuff like that. And then I think afternoon tea in the end, and then yeah, it finishes up at about 4. And so the details are in the newsletter. It's also on Facebook. So you have to be a member to come along. That basically just, unfortunately, that kind of stuff about insurance and stuff. So if you're not a member at the moment, there is like a bit of a discounted rate if you sign up. I've put that in the newsletter as well. So it's like you have to be a member. It's $20 for the tour. It's $10 for lunch, but you can skip that if you're going to bring your own. Yeah, and we would like to know numbers by the end of the month, because once we finalise numbers, they're going to kind of limit it, and then they might open it up to, because there's a permaculture group down in Central Coast, so we kind of get first dibs, but then they'll sort of open it up. So if you want to come along, hopefully you will come along. It'll be great. And basically we can be, some people might carpool. We'll also be going down by train, so we'll kind of find out who wants to go down train. We can all catch the train down together and get to know each other, have a bit of a chat on the way. So you need to basically email, it's treasurer@permaculturehunter.org.au. It was unfortunately put up wrong initially on Facebook as .com.au. It's not, it's .org.au. So treasurer@permaculturehunter.org.au. If you could please email within about the next week, letting me know if you'd like to come along. I am also the treasurer and the membership officer. So if you're not sure if you're an active member, I can look up and let you know. And then I will basically get back to you and go, this is what your total amount to pay is. And yeah, the money for the tour and the lunch goes to Narara Eco Village. Yeah, so any questions about that? Yes, Sunday, October. Yes, yes. Sunday, 30th of October. Yeah, so other than that, there was a question. I might just see if I can see the chat screen. I don't think it's going to be officially open, but he might, he apparently has one of the kind of spec houses. So I think there was some kind of spec houses built as part of the village. It's not one that he's designed himself, but yeah, we might have a quick look in his house if he's willing. So, okay, so thank you very much. So I think we'll close the Zoom component now, and thank you, Lisa. That reminds me, I do have to, yes, try and restart a YouTube channel because we do have about 4 or 5 videos that we can put up there. So, but thank you again. Thank you so much for Pat. And yeah, we'll shut down the Zoom now. So thank you all for coming. Bye.
Nice.
You should say nice. Yeah, I would say it now.